And then I'm of course one of the proud supervisors of Synes in his doctoral thesis, which I take as a credit.
My name is Francisco Menendez. I'm professor and chair of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I'm also president of the University Film and Video Association, and we have a conference in Las Vegas which starts with Digital Innovation Day on July 31st, and I'm hoping to find a way to get Synes to join us and invite all of you. Kiersey has cards with the conference and the conference website, so if you're interested, please reach out to me, and I will do my best to waive as many conference fees as I can, because I know that you'll be coming from a place
in the United States, of course, is really tied to first-person shooting, which really does not engage the imagination. In this case, apparently first-person shooting also involves living room exercise. And this is John Carmack, who is known for Doom, and so he also joined Parma Lucky. But of course VR is much more than that, and certainly these 2.5 days has proven that. This is being one of the most content worthy conferences I've ever attended. So thanks to Stan and Bert and Jacques for allowing me to come and join. This is Bird Lee. Used to fly over San Francisco, now flies over New York. That's Mark Zuckerberg, who ate the Oculus Rift for $2 billion, making gamers very unhappy. And this is really kind of the question that we have as we sort of try and explore this in an academic setting in the US, is we saw the kind of death of Google Glass as augmented reality. Google came out with this notion of being able to do all this thing, and they were really not treated well. In fact, they were known as glass holes, because of course it would be streaming whatever their POV would do. And I'm remembering your torture analogy from the first day, as we kind of force these images and these experiences on people. The promise of the Microsoft HoloLens, which would allow you to go into Mars in your living room and design stuff, hasn't really come to life in a promising way. The Gear VR, which we've been using, started at $200, then $100, then if you bought a phone, it was $0. Oculus, sorry, I'm speaking in dollars, but this can be transferred pretty as the euros, almost at equity, just add 10%, 20. And of course the Oculus Rift. And one of the reasons that these two are partners is because inside the Oculus Rift, in the first one when they opened it up, was the Samsung phone. But for my students even, the biggest problem with 3D, which was the hot topic 5 years ago, is in America there's an upcharge of $3.50 if you go see a 3D movie. And so students would rather not pay for this. The best VR experience so far is the Vive, being the most expensive. And one of the things that, of course, is a hidden cost, but not at a university level because we have computers, is the fact that to run this stuff you need an $1,000 computer with a very strong graphics card to do it, unless you're running Gear VR. So there are the guts of the Oculus Rift and the Gear VR. And Google did do something great in order for me to be able to convince administrators and colleagues from across the country, and that is providing cardboard. Well, it's a lousy experience for more than 2.5 minutes. It allows people to actually turn their cell phone into a VR. And so the kind of creativity that we saw in the past 2 days in the VR hack can be shared quite easily without having to add a $2,000 price tag for people to be able to experience it. One of the things that I think, while we will not wear the glasses from Google, the idea of using our cell phones to sort of create augmented reality is one of those things that seems to be right around the corner. And the Pokemon Now, which will allow the Pokemon characters to live among you in the seats, seems something that a whole new generation is looking to be part of their new reality. And so we move forward. And it's as we look, we thought that the Sony project Morpheus was going to cost $1,000. It really only cost $500, which means that you have a whole group of people in the United States that have PS4s and all across the world. And this is really kind of probably going to win in the VR worlds. And then it's a matter of content. You know, we were talking with Sinus about Milk and the ability to be able to have curated VR on the Samsung. And the lessons I learned here in Helsinki was what I thought was true, which is we're really looking at theater, and we're looking at promenade theater, which is an old idea. We're looking at theater in the round, except in reverse. Instead of being in the round, you are in the center, and then the theater happens around you, and that was what James and Peter and Sylvia and the rest of us tried to do with Invisible. And it really is amazing because you create this experience, you do all the visual cues and you guide the eyes, and then you step away and you kind of trust by just kind of looking at the edge of what the performers are and get a sense of their cues. And we used our last take, which was take 5, and it worked quite well, and it's very exciting, sort of, it's like jumping off a cliff once you allow them the 360 space to perform. So there is normally in the shooting of an American film, you have very little rehearsal time, and as you shoot, you develop a performance between, as we get to the close-up, as you move in, you finally want to hit that moment, that sweet spot. Here you have to kind of create the whole performance and witness it, and then take a step out and start shooting. And it's really, it was really fascinating, and this is a real great gift given to me by the conference. One of my students created this augmented reality experience, and I can't show you all of it, but what it does is it takes your own house and then adds all these different elements to it, or scans things like the painting, and then if you have something on the wall that will drop and do all sorts of things, and then uses binaural audio to create a whole experience inside, a terrifying experience inside your house. Well, this is not something I would prefer. It's an interesting use of...
During the research stage of this game, I read paper after paper that basically said what we wanted to do was impossible. The game takes advantage of every component in the device. The camera, the microphone, the LED, the accelerometer, the gyroscope, the GPS. Every component comes together to form a single camera depth estimation system that makes the impossible possible.
And Brian's a fascinating guy, just like Sunis is a fascinating guy, and all the young researchers we saw, and all the seasoned researchers we saw kind of created a synthesis this week and made us get
right now
to the point that basically none of this, all these platforms are useless without content and without meaning, and that's a job. And my job is to sort of to evangelize American schools to give it a shot, and the people that used to be scared of moving from film to digital cinema now to allow a little pocket for VR experiences. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Would some other school be better suited, some other existing school be better suited for the task?
Well, I come from an art school where we kind of combine art, technology, and science, so that for us it's easier to go towards such a thing like a traditional film school. I found a tendency on film schools that they have quite a conservative arrogance. That was when video came in, they said, well, we are filmmakers, we work with film, and they created a subcultural video movement and video art. And then when 8 years ago I started to make this 3D research for art, Femi said, these are film auteurs, this is Disney, this is Pixar, disgusting, yeah? So the same thing now with virtual reality. I think it's a really, film school should really open their windows, let some air in, some light in, yeah? And we, in film school, we are experts on narration. we are expert in visual languages. And there are huge changes when gaming come up. Everybody said, now we don't touch that. Yeah? And now we have a lot of bad stories in gaming and bad visuals, and that would have a job opportunity for our students to finance their artistic careers. So I would say there's a must. And also when we make VR experience, and we will not go to VR making, we can retransform the VR experience to our cinematic experience. I never found out that some research, some new experience makes you more stupid.
Well said, I agree very much. Also the connections between, as Mike in English, Mike referred to the tradition or the genealogy of cinema and immersive strategies and all these things that we are talking about here, that the VR actually is not new thing, but it has a history and it has a future, and it has a contemporary also. So thinking about the connections between moving image and theater or performing arts, rituals and all these, and imaginary arts and augmented realities. So I'm thinking that film school is very much a very good place for that. And I think in terms of being a scenographer or production designer, I'm like yesterday, the Swedish trio, they took up a very important point, that there's also very much spatial narratives that are involved in VR and in 360, and in terms of editing and in terms of directing and in terms of anything, in terms of performing. Also, it's something that is in flat screen cinema, of course, but in totally different way. So the spatial narratives are something that of course I am very, very interested in, and I think that that's something that in terms of all the branches, also production, because the production modes and the structures have of course altered also. People are more and more crossing borders, and I think that that's very essential also in this. I'm not saying that directors should stop being directors or learning how to be directors and all these sort of basic knowledges, but then the thinking is expanding, I think, along with immersive VR cinema.
Well, I have personal experiences from my PhD working with NFT Interactive Cinema in the beginning of 2000, that really film schools tend to be really conservative and even hostile to anything that works to other direction than the classical traditional cinema making. But I hope that those years are gone by, and it seems like they've gone by because of this conference here and because of Sunes's really valuable work on bringing virtual cinema lab into life here. So things have changed to some extent, but still the conservatism is like our worst enemy. It's the worst enemy in any field, but especially within if you talk about the film schools. And you mentioned about gaming. So I had this experience. 2010, I was doing my postdoctoral research exchange in visiting research at USC and at the School of Cinematic Arts. And then I was invited to give a presentation on my enactive interactive biosensor-driven cinema at the gaming department. And I was not prepared to such a hostile encounter with the students and professors there at that point, when I suggested that after my presentation I would love to discuss about overlapping the fields where interest of games and like new forms of cinema meet, which is in the domain of storytelling and narratives. And I was basically not always strong with Rotten Tomatoes that time because gamers don't need cinema. But this was 2010, and once again we're moving really fast forward in this. So today it's already different environment. So now also gamers have realized that narratives and cinema actually has something to give also to the gaming. So we hope that this changes become faster and faster, so that all this conservatism and kind of protectionism of one's own field can be kind of bypassed.
What we discovered in trying to teach feature-length filmmaking was to create a co-curricular project which would work parallel to the curriculum and have faculty lead in key positions. And this would allow us to also create a film fund for the students that have undergone this to be able to make their own feature films. This is totally not teaching a class on feature-length filmmaking. This is in the practice of, and I think that in the case of virtual reality, we just experienced the benefit of a 2-day VR hack. And just like we have a 48-hour film competition at my university that sometimes produces some of the best, most creative things because they have these restrictions to abide with, the notion of incorporating a VR hack within the curriculum along with an opportunity of parallel curricular experiences that are in virtual reality, I think is a way that in the American system, it would be a better way to introduce virtual reality than have a class called virtual reality creation, and you must have 2 virtual reality projects by the end, and these people are not convinced. If it's something that they feel is driven by their impulse, then all of the other stuff, like happened with us in these past 2 days, will follow. And if the gap circle is closed, like just happened today when we actually saw the work, I think that this could really allow them to make meaning and see the potential in this in a way that they might not see it otherwise.
We passed the film school issue now. Can we go to the flesh?
What was the flash?
The experience, the VR experience, and how to create VR experiences.
Do you have an answer for that question?
No? That's why we need to discuss about it. Okay, yeah, go with your plan.
No, it's a boring plan. I would love to. If anybody here has like the holy grail of creating great VR experiences, I would love to hear it.
At least I have an idea how we guys could work on together, but I came up yesterday night. We should, or universities interested in developing VR, we should meet for 3 or 4 or 5 days and just discuss different VR strategies. For example, we came up yesterday with a porthole strategy, where you kind of go through a story, you find portholes, and then you incorporate persons that you do not know who you are. You could be a woman, a man, you could be black or white, you could be a celebrity or ugly. But by finding out who you are, you get information, and then you find another porthole, and you get in another person. And by this, you can solve a riddle or a quest. That would be one strategy. One strategy would be like in old monasteries where there's crosswalks, where you have different experiences, and you fill in the rest of the story in between the gaps. And if we develop for a couple of days, different VR strategies, and then every university goes home and produces one prototype. And then when we meet later, then we can really develop strategies. So the hack is one beautiful idea, but the hack is kind of getting immediately creativity, but it will never find out what I call curved events, a quantum theory of drama, which we need also to develop strategically by all our cultural historical knowledge. A quantum theory of drama.
Can you explain that?
One of our friends said, VR is a lot of, you had said it's about space, and we need an Eisenstein of space. And I was thinking, yes, but we need an Einstein and an Eisenstein of space to really cover the ground.
And one female.
Lots of people.
Lots of females.
Yeah, the infinite answer to the question, I don't have. surprisingly. But to think that, or to just to say that these are the same questions that we have been in philosophy and in arts and in media theory and cinema theory and in making cinema and making all these things and hybrid forms of arts that are somehow attached to live event and something imaginary and something augmented. We have been sort of tackling these for 100 years or more. I'm most familiar in the continental philosophy round, sort of, and it's where I somehow always go to look for the answers together with the contemporary practices. And also we have this mediated performance design course going on. It's ending this Friday. It's a 5-week workshop. It's part of this digital visual design. Mikä se on? Sivuaine. Not major, but minor. Yes. Yeah. And it's an opportunity for the students to play with the interactivity and with sense technologies, motion capture, all these things in performative context. And it's amazing to see, okay, we have no directors and dramaturgs taking part in this course, but we should, because it's scenographers and lighting designers and sound designers and media designers who are the students, and it's amazing to see how they really get to the situation that they are immersed in the learning processes as they are sort of acting with their own doppelganger character on the screen and on the space, and so that's. I ran out of the subject now, but sort of the connection, again, the connecting points in these areas of all arts or cinema and theater and the hybrids in between. Now I'm repeating myself, so we take over.
So, no, I'm being over.
One of the things that, of course, the opportunity to be able to change gender in VR, which has already been practiced, and really be transgressive without necessarily be torturous, is tremendous. And I think the most important thing is we teach it is not to tell it, but to have the modules that you're talking about, the portholes of experience, and have the students be able to experience it before discussing it. So what we call in America a spoiler alert, in which we tell the students the end of Citizen Kane before we roll the film. We don't want to do the same thing in VR and kind of say, you're going to feel this, that you're going to put it on, have them do what we did and really have a personal experience with it. Of course, some people will reject it, some people will embrace it, and it won't be for everybody. I mean, cinema is a little bit more popular and democratic, and I think as I see my kids grow up, this will be something that they will universally embrace. My first film students, when they heard about us incorporating gaming in the curriculum, said, why? We're film students, we don't want any part of it. And you would think that the film students would want this. So I think it's a great opportunity, but the most important thing is to not spoil it for them in the beginning through theory, because it's so new that they might not have had a chance to do it, or the only way they did it was by shooting or killing people, rather than by having a real virtual experience.
So that I think is maybe the most important task with film schools and film students engaged with virtual reality, is really to research and study and experiment through their own stories and through the narratives they want to create, the worlds they want to create, the new media and new medium, and then kind of it would be great if the film schools would be the resource of the professional world for finding kind of or defining or identifying the rules or kind of how to adapt the cinematic narrative to this new spatial medium. Yeah.
At least in Finland, I think film schools are still very much struggling with the idea of interactive narrative and games. So we don't really teach any of that stuff, at least here in Elo Film School. and that's been around for like 40 years. I'm a little bit skeptical if we could suddenly just jump into teaching virtual reality, I guess the students, since they're typically younger than the teachers, would have maybe more experience and more understanding of virtual reality, especially a couple of years from now. But how could we find experts with decades of experience of virtual reality to teach them? That's, I think, one of the big problems. Francisco?
Yes. So I think in the United States there's a big separation between theater departments and film departments traditionally, that there are a few schools that actually have a tremendous bridge between them. And I think more important than teaching virtual reality is teaching performance, because that's really what's going to create the believability of virtual reality. So the ability to be able to create that performance and that staging and that blocking, and that camera, whether it's the Nokia or the Pix Pro or whatever it is almost unimportant, because it comes in at the end. Obviously there will be all sorts of elements of design, hiding lights, creating colors that complement all this stuff. But that whole notion of performance has always been a problem in America with film schools, that basically young directors think that it's about moving actors around like chess pieces and not understanding the kind of need and want that kind of provides that in the scene. So I think it's not only teaching the future, but it's also teaching the past that the film school is missing right now.
I graduated here in Elo Film School, but I also studied, I was like just out of high school in the New York Film Academy for one summer, and they had like 10 teachers there, and one of them was like the scholarly type, had written this like books you might want to read before coming, but you don't have to read anything. And there was Aristotle's Poetics was on that list. And when they introduced that on the first day, the list of reading, all the other teachers were like, Aristotle? Why is that in there? This film, it's poems? I don't know, what is that? But reading it, it's really like, of course it's not about poetry, but it's about theater. But it's not really even about theater, but about how the human mind absorbs experiences, and the same tactics that he shows for making theater, or creating these like learning experiences.
They, provide coherent meaning, or there's some sense in that experience and that what requires kind of professionalism, in the sense that there must be people who kind of are capable of framing the world where the person is entering, and so kind of be able to prepare in the early beginning of the story, like we do in the classical feature films. Like the title scene is the most important scene of the whole film, some people say, because that actually introduces you to the context, introduces you to the mood, it introduces the kind of the main character, if it's you as a main character, if it's somebody else. So we need to kind of start to look at these ways of making traditional cinema and kind of induce that understanding into this new virtual experiences, especially if we are talking about like narrative experiences, where we want to introduce totally new worlds to the experience, to the participants.
I think one of the problems of introducing all those new research to universities is that we professors lose authority. So because we go with our students to an unmapped territory where we are not the more clever guys. And this is risky, and this is why everybody tries to avoid it. When we tell the story about how we shot 35mm with Werner Herzog in the Amazonian rainforest, and we are the real professionals. Yeah. But it's granddaddy telling war stories. It's nice with a beer, but for the research for the future for them, it doesn't have any meaning anymore. Yeah. And we have to look at completely different sources of knowledge. For example, I made in these 2 days myself a note, go back reading Aboriginal storytelling, Australian Aboriginal storytelling. I think you guys in Australia, you have a huge source for going to new strategies of storytelling in VR with the Dreamtime storytelling of Aborigines, because they, well, one thing which is so weird with them is they say our daily life is to keep your body alive, that you have time to dream. Yeah. And in this dreaming, they always, in the storytelling, they always come from one level to each other. And you're beginning with the shamanism. I think that Kshavanti Indians, or there are a lot of possibilities where we really kind of can reconnect very, very old tradition. And this is exactly what you said in your document.
Thank you, Francisco.
We could start whatever it is of if it, you're just a license for a driver license with a car, or if you take apart a motor, if you can simulate it, and until you have the complete idea, and then you go to the real world. It's a huge opportunity, and this will definitely come, even without our participation in filmmaking, because it makes so much sense to make a virtual experience and taking apart a motor before you really destroy the thing.
Yeah, I agree, and also that there's all the time there's coming new gear and new more developed. Like next week, what we are talking now seems old-fashioned, or maybe not quite, but anyway, it's generation, and then what he said, the monsieur who just left, yes, Francisco, about the spoiler alert. I'm a little bit. I agree, but sort of also disagree in that sense that the more that you are aware of the contexts and the references, it might be other films, but it might be theoretical texts or contextualization. And
Are there any comments or observations from the audience? There are. Great. I'm going to give you the microphone.
I just wanted to say that maybe we should not be so skeptical regarding the reaction of film schools and generally film industry on VR, because what is happening, and this is pretty basic, but also might have its meaning, is that VR is entering all these film festivals, like from Sundance, Tribeca, also Cannes, Berlin. Actually, everyone wants to have, or starts to have some VR section there. And we have also financing showing up. It's very practical stuff, but if you have TVs that are entering the film, and some sources for financing, like public financing also for VR experiments, then there is a chance, and it all comes from the film industry on this financial also level. So there is a chance that it will be accepted in the film industry that VR is an acceptable or development of film, and actually I do hope for that.
Just very shortly, I will not agree with Jacek, even if we are from the same school, because in which they never start to teach television. So, but I just, to keep it short, I really love the idea, Ludger idea, that we can do something, because I'm convinced that we have to look for strategies how to use this tool for storytelling. It's not ready yet, and it's a very good idea to just to share this experiment and just to join forces. And film schools, they are conservative, but on the other hand, there are places to experiment, and it's easy to convince students to experiment, and I think it can be very advantages in the end, and this kind of a platform for discussion, that we will not stay alone with all the experimenting, but we can confront thinking and results. That's a wonderful idea, in my opinion.
In filming, especially for VR, there's a lot of gaming characteristics that we need to learn. And I was like in the games conference, in the Art Games conference last week, and was like me and only 2 filming interested people. And this is a shame, like we need to actually, it's from us and from the game part, to start going to the events and mingle with people. Like here again, there is no gamers at all. And this will be, if there are gamers together with filming students, this will happen and will be really good. Because we are talking a lot about motion sickness, and in the gaming side, this is something that is already done. They have games of robots flying and you are crazy, they're rotating, they have all the answers already. So we just need to talk and communicate between each other.
One more short audience comment.
No,
Bert and Damien. Yeah.
there was a conference last year in Faro on Bergman's Island, organized by the Swedish film school, and it was called Awesome Bergman, but it was games and film. So it were film students and it were gamers, but there were also people from documentary. Alex McDowell was there, but Katarina Cicek and Judith Wallison were there, top people from. Linda Aronson was there talking about script. So we brought everything together, and also sound people, very impressive. So that was a very successful conference, supported by Select, and I have suggested to the Swedish colleagues to do it again, because I think it's interesting, and you asked for that. So, and we should communicate with other schools that are not our classic film schools, because in this we come together. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to echo some of the points just very quickly. First point, all of my research that I've done in alternative forms of media, and to touch on the idea of skepticism, I think there is something there. There's a theorist called William Ogburn who talks about cultural change. And a lot of the other stuff that I've done is always met with resistance. For some reason, there's not that same resistance with VR. I don't know quite why that is, and that's fascinating. But in terms of the second point was strategies, and it's just really to echo what you said, because, sorry, I'm losing my voice. To echo what you said, because VR seems to get picked up very much by the film industry. And you're talking about gaming has a lot of the answers, and I feel like I'm an avid gamer, but my theory on gaming is a bit weak. I can see the direct correlation of film and digital. But I started off with theatre, and I feel that theatre also has very many of these answers. And I feel that, I'm so glad that I came to this workshop for 2 days. I feel that what I've taken out of it is immense. But in future, in terms of developing strategies, I think theatre has a lot of these answers, because you have thrust theatre, but you also have Squarespace, which is already blocked and designed and written for 270 degrees. And so in terms of developing strategies, I think it's an amalgamation of gaming, theatre, and film, because I think we're going to steal their medium if they're not careful.
And we should have an opening mark or like a continuing mark. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this field developing in film schools, and I hope that also like Elo Film School will be a crucial player in this field in the future.
Yeah, and to come back to the playful idea of playfulness, that's what we have seen here, the 48-hour workshop. People working like crazy and missing the Heureka experiment, I guess. And what many of the speakers have been touching, the fantastic trio from Stockholm, I love them, and how they sort of took the jump into the unknown and did in short time something very special and learned a lot. So this is what has been really enjoyable here also in this conference to see, and that somehow to do a lot with VR film development and all these performative and theatrical, whatever forms they might be and contexts. Thanks.
Well, let's rock and roll.
Thank you very much. Let's keep on discussing.